this is not only is this a natural thing that guys kind of do, I think, without really realizing that they are, but also when it comes to game and it comes to like sort of understanding those demonstrations, you can also manufacture that as well. So can you discuss like what is DHV, which is demonstrating higher value?
Well, you've got to be subtle about it, haven't you? This is the thing. And it's a difficult balance to make, because what you don't want to do is be a braggart where you just rock into the interaction and you're like, hey, you know, my Lambo's parked outside and check out my watch. And yeah, I've got a new house in the south of France and all that kind of stuff, because it's just going to look try hard. It's going to, and I know people are going to disagree in the chat. They're like, no, that dude's going to get laid because he's got money. But it looks try hard. It's a bit tacky. It's just not going to fly for most girls. So there's got to be an element of subtlety to it. And I think that the way that you, and this really is what I teach in Cat Academy, is the way that you demonstrate higher value is actually through the way that you can comport yourself socially. It should be implied. It's show, not tell. You know, it should be implied rather than overtly stated. And actually, I have to say, even hanging out with, you know, like somebody like Tristan Tate, I was there one time when he got the phone number of a waitress in this place where we were. And even someone like him, he's not there overtly saying, oh, well, why don't you have a look at my Instagram? Look at these cars, look at this money, blah, blah, blah. It's implied, you know. Now, obviously, he's well dressed. He's in a certain place. Maybe he's wearing a watch or something like that. But it's not something he screams about. It's something that you should just emanate from you so that they pick up on it. Right. And that's the subtle thing that you've got to get your head around.
Yeah. See, I was in the chapter on DHV that I'm working on right now. In fact, I'm glad we're talking about this because I just finished this chapter. It seems to me, and I don't know, I forgot where I picked this up. It might have been SoSuave back in the day, but there are displays of higher value and there are demonstrations of higher value. DHV is what everybody's mostly familiar with, like demonstrating higher value. Yeah. And then, so the first way people were talking about demonstrating higher value is within your conversation, like slipping in little spikes of, like, oh yeah, when I was in the south of France, I did this, you know, like an interesting story kind of thing where you're just sort of like slipping in just a casual conversation about like, oh yes, when I was in the military, right? Or when I was, you know, at university in Harvard, blah, 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 that kind of stuff that is just sort of slipped into conversation that doesn't sound like it's contrived. That is, would you consider that a demonstration of higher value? Because you can't really display that unless you've got your diploma hanging on the wall right there.
I think, I think that's fine to do that as long as you do it you've got to just be subtle about it. You know, you've got to be nuanced about it, because anything that tips over the edge, and there's obviously women in the chat maybe agree or disagree with this, but it seems to me that anything you say that seems like you're overtly trying to impress them is probably going to be counterproductive. It's going to count against you, because she's going to think, well, hang on a minute, this dude's just bragging. You know, he's showing off about things to try and get with me. So you can do it, but you've got to sort of do it in a very subtle way. And that takes a bit of practice, I think, for many people.
There's an art to it. Yeah, I think that a lot of guys really, when I throw out the joke there on it's now a joke. It wasn't a joke before, but like whenever I put out the picture of a girl on Twitter and I say, how would you open? A lot, you know, of course, no one who follows me on Twitter understands that used to be a practice that old school PUAs would, you know, use with their students, whatever. Say, how would you open this girl? Well, I would never go open that girl. Blah, blah, blah. She's a goth chick. She's a sporty chick.
Not high quality enough.
It's like, it's not what the point of the exercise is. It's you coming up with like sort of this witty opener for that particular, in that particular context with a girl who looks a particular way. It's not that you would actually go and do that. It's like, if you were in that situation, if you found that kind of person attractive, what would you say? And I don't think a lot of people really make the connection, because what they think of is they think that it is, okay, what line should I repeat? Like what rote memorized line do I know that I could repeat to this? And it's like, it's not about rote memorization. It's about improvisation. And I think that when it comes to like demonstrating higher value, it's also about like at least the look, anyways, the appearance or the improvisation of demonstrating that higher value, as opposed to displaying that higher value, because anybody can display higher value. Like I was looking at the what was it? I think it was the book by David Buss. I forget what it is. Oh, Men Behaving Badly, right? Yeah. And he was talking about these studies about these guys who were like valet drivers for like in Miami or in Vegas or whatever, and they would be responsible for driving like Ferraris, McLarens, and Lambos and everything else. And the first thing they do once they get into those cars is they start taking pictures of themselves in the car to, you know, to give the impression or the perception that they are higher value. So displays of higher value, I think today are much cheaper than they were back, because you used to have to be able to have actually have the Lambo, right?
Well, you can hire planes now, can't you? There's places, I think is it in Russia or maybe
interiors of them.
Yeah, but even in Russia, or sorry, maybe even Europe, you can hire a plane for the morning and go in and take loads of pictures for your Instagram. So it's kind of crazy because obviously people have cottoned on to this fact that everyone wants to flex on social media, and there's a market for that now. You know, so it's all that kind of thing. Yeah, turn up to the hotel for the morning, just buy coffee in the lobby and get some pictures of yourself, and it's all that kind of thing, isn't it? And I suppose that's the thing as well. You've got to be able to back it up, haven't you? If you're going to play that game, if you're going to play the I'm an Instagram, you know, influencer kind of rocking out in Dubai kind of game, you've got to then be able to back that up in real life. Otherwise, play a different game, right?
Right. Listen, my point was this is like what we were talking about before, like the shifts in old school game, like displaying higher value versus demonstrating higher value. Like it's, to me anyways, from in the social media era, displays of higher value, I think, are less impressive right now than they are. It might get you in the door. It might get you, like, the woman believes that you're actually, you know, driving a Lambo. But once you get to that point where having that conversation, you're actually on a date or you're actually interacting with that person, that's make or break time right there. That's when congruence has to be tight, right?
It's funny. Yeah, it's kind of funny because I was actually, I mean, again, I always come back to talking about these guys, but we met up with the Tates in not there's anything wrong with friends. It's just you know, you go back. It's always the example of the sort of apex alpha in the space, isn't it? But we sort of met up with those dudes in Kiev for a bit, and Andrew was telling a story about how he went for a dinner with a bunch of guys, a bunch of people who are Bugatti owners. And he was like the youngest Bugatti owner around this table of these probably old guys who are, you know, whatever. And he turned up with a couple of girls, a couple of women that he's dating or whatever. And apparently these other guys around the table were just, their jaws were on the floor, like, not because of the girls were attractive, but because they could see there was this genuine desire there coming back from these women. And these guys, if they were getting dates and getting sex and things, it was kind of a bit transactional, you know. It was kind of like, oh, I'm a rich guy, okay, I'm a 23-year-old Instagram model, you know, give me the money to fly to Dubai in a 5-star hotel, and, you know, whatever, you know, it's all a little bit transactional. They could see that this desire that Andrew was getting was not. And so again, it's just this whole thing, money in itself, it's not gonna, it's not the be all and end all. It doesn't really it makes a difference in the sense that there are probably some women who are just, you know, if you're not of a certain level, you're just not, you know, there's a glass ceiling. Right. But beyond that, it's not the money itself that gives you the sex appeal. It's not the money itself that makes her want to, you know, have sex with you, right? It's the extra stuff that you've got, and that's not so easily acquired. Yeah, and even rich guys need to learn this stuff.
It's that authenticity, I think, too, as well. And I know a lot of guys will say, you know, fake it till you make it, but I think a lot of guys get really pissed off at that notion, at that concept, because especially guys who feel like they've already made it, and other guys who are faking what they took their sweet time to get to that point of that status and that, you know, that stature or whatever it is, and they see some guy faking. I mean, if I had to go through all the work it took to get a Lamborghini or McLaren, and I saw some kid who was posting pictures of another McLaren somewhere on Instagram pretending like he actually had that, or trying to front as if he had that, if you were the guy who actually did have that, you probably get pretty pissed off at that, right? I mean, you want the authentic, real deal. So I think there's sort of this back and forth between guys who actually have high value versus the guys who are faking high value to get to the same, you know, end goal which is, you know, get a hot girl kind of thing, and be impressive, I guess, is the thing.